In this video, I would like to show you how you get to my Moodle page and how you get to all the Tradebook items that you'll need for our assignments. Now, most of you have been at Moodle before, my Moodle before, and so just a reminder in case you need to know how to do that, the best way to get to Moodle is to click on, or you go to the Southwestern Vibe page first, which is what I have on the screen. Then you click on SW Moodle here on the left side of your screen. Yours and mine will look a little different, but here's the best place to do this. When you get to Moodle, make sure you scroll down to EHMIS. Make sure you're at EHMIS. You will not find me if you are at the high school or the elementary level. So you click on EHMIS Social Studies. When you do that, you'll see a selection of courses from middle school. So you want Mr. Clark's American Cultures. Okay, so you click on Mr. Clark's American Cultures, and here's where yours and mine will definitely look different. If you have already been to my Moodle, it should look like this. You should see the 34-star flag. If you need to log in, it will ask you for your own personal login information. That's what you always use to log in to school. It may also ask you for an enrollment key. If you're using a different computer than you normally use, not your school laptop, for example, uh, you will need to use an enrollment key, AC Clark. So it's all small letters, no spaces, ACCLARK. Again, that's ACCLARK, AC Clark. All small letters, no capitals, no spaces. Now, once you have made it to the 34-star American flag, you're going to scroll down to the trade book section. Again, yours and mine look a little different, but you want to go down to the trade book section, click on the word trade books, and when that opens, you'll see, scroll down to it again, there we go. You'll see a link to an introductory video that explains what we do with our trade books. There is a link to a Word document that explains what the reading assignments are, which chapters go with which quiz that you take. There's also one called Culture Notes. Now, with either the reading assignments or the culture notes, you can download these, you can save them to your own files and manipulate them, change them, add to them, whatever. With the culture notes especially, you may want to print that if you don't already have one, so you can take some notes on what you're doing. So let me show you just quickly what that's all about. Reading assignments, if we open that document, it'll ask us to open it, so we want to go ahead and do that. When it opens, you will see, there we go, yours looks a little different than mine. So if I make it look like this, there we go. So it'll have on here our spring due dates and things. We don't really have dates on here because at this point we're not really sure what all the dates are. But it'll show you in this left column the Moodle quiz numbers, quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, quiz 4, and it goes the whole way down to 15. There are 15 reading assignments for your trade book. There is a column for chains. So if you're reading chains, you follow this column that says page 3 to 23 is on the first reading quiz. So after you have read pages 3 to 23, you can go take the first quiz. Of course, you want to get an 80% right or better to pass. If you don't get an 80% right or better, then you need to retake the quiz. So read carefully. These quizzes really are not difficult if you've read the book. If you're reading Fever, you do this column. It shows you which chapters to read before you take each quiz. If you're reading Sam is Dead, pretty much the chapter numbers correspond with the Moodle quiz numbers. Now over here in the right column, I have a title of each of those culture activities. There are 7 of them total. You're only going to do 3 of them. We'll get those to you through Google Classroom. So as you read, I'll show you on your culture notes how you put down a little bit of notes about where you would find information about housing, for example, in your trade book, or food or clothing, transportation, family relationships, work and jobs, health and medicine. These are all the different culture elements we're learning about as we read. Now, you're not, again, doing a culture activity on all 7 of those, just on 3. You can pick the 3 you want. Some books are a little easier than others. For example, Sam, pretty difficult to do clothing from Sam is Dead. It doesn't have a lot of information about that. So that would be maybe a hint if you're reading Sam. You might want to concentrate on the other ones. What's the house like they live in? What's the food like that they eat or they serve in their tavern? Certainly, all the books have a lot about family relationships. Transportation might be a little bit easier in Chains than some of the other books. Health and medicine, maybe not as much in health and medicine category in Sam is Dead. Maybe you'll have better success with that category if you're reading Fever or Chains, which, of course, Fever is almost entirely about health and medicine. Okay, so that's the reading assignment document. Now let's show you the culture notes. Again, when you open this, it's a multiple page document that a lot of you already have, but maybe some of you don't have one. So what you do is as you're reading, you can do a little bit of notes on what you find about housing, what you read about housing, or where you find it. Eventually, when you do your culture activities, you'll need to have some page number evidence. So I'm describing here, for example, when you're reading Sam is Dead. If you're looking for housing information, you're thinking about these kinds of questions. Look for descriptions of people's houses. What do their homes look like? What materials are they made of? What rooms do they have? How do they use them? Who sleeps where? Is there a barn or any other buildings on their property? Or what houses do other people in the story live in? How do their homes compare to ours? That's a lot of what we're doing, is trying to learn the culture of early America and compare it to our own culture. So I just put on here an example. If you're reading Sam, they give some description of their house on pages 12 and 13. That's not the only place they describe it. I'm just using this as one example. In Fever, their Philadelphia house has some descriptions on page 6 and 7. If you're reading Chains, page 45 describes the Locktons' very fancy house in New York City, maybe 45 on to 46. The idea is you might put down a little bit of page numbers, a little bit of notes as you read along. Say, okay, you can go back to this document when you do your culture activity to understand what the people's house looked like that they live in. There are others, as to do food. I have a couple of questions for you to think about their food. Where do they get their food and drink? And you may want to record some page numbers where you read about that sort of thing. Or clothing. What kind of clothes do they wear? What materials are they made of? How much of it is store bought or how much of it is homemade? We'll compare all these things to our own. Family relationships. Of course, each of these books has a lot to do with family. The different kind of work and jobs people do, the health and medicine. And again, there are a few questions to think about as you're reading. Now, so those are the reading assignments, a bit about the culture notes. And just as a reminder, for each book, you'll find a read aloud in case you don't actually have one of the books, or if you just find it easier to listen to someone read. For example, Fever 1793. When you click on that, it'll go to YouTube and it'll come up with a read aloud of each of the different sections. And of course, you're welcome to read along with those. Read your book as you listen. That might help you quite a bit. Now, last thing about the culture quizzes, the reading quizzes. Again, these aren't meant to be difficult, but if you have read chapters 1 to 4 in Fever, or if you've read chapter 1 in Sam, or if you've read, I have to skip past some things we don't use anymore. Okay. Chains 1 to 23, or excuse me, pages 3 to 23. Once you've read that, you go ahead and preview the quiz, it says, and then you can take your quiz. When does the story begin? And you click on the correct answer in Chains. Or what time of day is it? What item is being carried on the back of the wagon? You answer all the questions. I think you've done something similar with some of your other reading you've done with language arts. After you finish the quiz, it'll tell you how many you have right or wrong. And so you'll finish the attempt. Now, I didn't answer any of these, so it's going to tell me I have them all wrong. When you finish the attempt, you'll submit and finish, submit and finish, Oh, there you go. Now I didn't answer any of them, so I have them all wrong. Um, so what you'll want to do is, if you didn't make 8 out of 10 right, go back and take the quiz again. And you want to do this until you're able to get 8 out of 10 right. Truth is, if you read the book, these aren't hard. Okay, I'll give you an example quick. Um, what time of day it is? I'll just answer these. Let's see, which the 13 colonies are we starting in? Name of the main character, who is narrating the story. What's the main character? Why does she think she ought to believe, or why does she think she ought to be released from slavery? Let's see, who owns these people? What do the Sullivans run? Mr. Finch says he supports which side? And who buys the girls? Okay, there we go. So we've got some answers there. Okay, so we want to submit all and finish. Submit all and finish. And it'll tell me, oh, look at that. I have 9 right out of the 10. So I have passed this quiz. If I want to look at number 9 and see what did I do wrong there, well, it doesn't tell me the right answer. It will tell me that I have neither side as wrong. And, if you were to get less than 8 right, you'll need to go back and retake the quiz. All right, that's what you're doing with these assignments and things. So you want to make sure you have, read the section of the book. Make sure you're recording some notes in your culture notes about where you find information about some of those different culture items. Remember, you don't have to do all 7. You're just doing 3 eventually. And so that's important to not overwhelm yourself by trying to do all 7. And you take your quizzes, of course, as you're reading. And that's what we're doing with our assignments.